Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Not much has been happening with the Super M since we did the first test fire the other day. Well, several days ago now actually. And we've had a bit of a frustrating setback on it. This one's our fault. It's nothing catastrophic, but I'll just cut right to the chase. So, if you remember in the prior video, Senior had loosely installed the muffler on top of that exhaust pipe to do the initial test fire. Well, Senior's going to put the muffler back on so that we can make sure that it still knocks, right? Yeah. And during the process of removing the muffler from the pipe to get this back into the door, we noticed that this pipe was starting to get awfully loose in the manifold. Now, we were aware that it had been welded at one time. Pretty common thing to see on higher hour Farmall manifolds where that's like a pipe thread, interference fit thread in there. Over time that loosens up over the years, and somebody had run a pretty heavy bead of weld around there. That's the way this tractor's been ever since we had it. And it had been holding good, you know, the whole time. So we decided just to do a cleanup on the manifold, put some high temp paint on it, put it back on. We should have scrutinized this a lot closer than we did because, well, after that initial run and trying to pull the muffler back off, we noticed some movement, and it didn't take much at all to take that right off. And upon further inspection, that weld had already given up, I would say 95% of the way. We had a little bit of fresh stuff holding right there, a couple spots there and there, but for the most part, that was ready to let go, and there wasn't a whole lot left sitting down in the manifold. So, like I said, our fault. That's why we go through every last piece on these things, and you pretty much have to on an old machine, because if you leave any stone unturned, you can have a potential weak link like that sitting there just waiting to cause you problems. So at that point, I was just done with it. We're not trying to fix that manifold. It's already been welded once. It's not a proper repair anyhow. Again, our fault. We should have addressed that sooner, but probably a blessing that it, you know, it broke off right now before we had sheet metal on, because if you would have been going around the field edge with this and hooked one low hanging tree branch with the rain cap, it probably would have ripped it off and landed on sheet metal and everything else, and then I really would have been in a bad mood. So like I said, I was done with the whole thing. I went online, and Steiner Tractor Parts had a pretty good looking repro manifold pipe assembly gasket kit, so I ordered all that stuff up. But then that meant I had a few days to wait before the new parts showed up. So I can't lie, working on the Super M this fall really put us behind on a lot of our outdoor get ready for winter type projects, but we got some really nice weather this last week. The snow that we had on the ground completely disappeared. So I took 2 full days and just processed firewood. This little pile right here, it's not as big as the rest of them, but it's everything that I had on the ground in log length from this prior spring and summer. Split, stacked, covered in the pile. Like I said, 2 days worth of work. We can finish off the end yet with a little bit more. We ran out before we could completely square it off, and we'll probably make it at least out as far as these other ones are, but I didn't video any of that, didn't film any of it. Watching that splitter wedge go back and forth for 2 days and then me just stack wood wouldn't really make for a good video anyway. And I'm getting off track here, but we're working on this middle pile right here. We'll burn all of that this year, and then this is the next oldest pile. We'll start on that. The rest of that pile and this one should carry us through next winter fine. So probably at least 2 years out, we'll start working on that one. So then yesterday morning, we put some soil amendments in the ground on our garden plots, and I took that time to get everything tilled in. And boy, I had this looking just perfect yesterday, but those darn deer got in here last night, and it looks like they had a dance out here. Look at those buggers. I think they were just sitting inside the woods edge watching me yesterday make this all nice and flat and smooth, just so they could get in here and dance around. But I got that done, and shortly after I finished that, the delivery truck showed up with a box from Steiner Tractor Parts. So yesterday afternoon I got busy on that new manifold. And here it is. As you can see, I've already painted it, and yes, I two-toned it. We'll get into that little decision here in a minute, but long story short, I needed more silver up on the front end of this tractor. I wasn't a huge fan of the flat black high temp that Senior put on the old one, and you look at the originality guide, all these Farmalls, had silver exhaust. At least the mufflers are stuck out the top. Granted, the majority of these tractors, well, I think all of them on the factory line, had the manifold put on, and then the entire thing was sprayed red with the rest of the engine and everything else. What burned off, burned off. What stayed, stayed. Because this was brand new, you can see it is brand new. It was entirely bare metal when it showed up yesterday. Have really good threads up in there. There's the pipe that came with it. Again, brand new, good threads, gasket set. I wanted to coat this thing and just make it so that it stayed in reasonably nice condition. I also like this because they have the Circle C and the casting number in there. Everything is exactly as that factory original is out on that tractor, but I had some of my Eastwood silver high temp coating that I use on the Cat 10 manifold. I can pop a little link up there if you are so inclined to go look at that. And it was just in such nice condition. I wanted to get everything coated so that it would try and stay nice. I needed some more silver on the front of that tractor because of those Norden aftermarket front wheels. We don't have silver accents up there. So I decided to do high temp on the entire runner assembly except for the drop tube that goes down to the carburetor. The hood line is going to come right about here, so you will have the red that drops down to the carb. I brush painted that on. That's some leftover from the enamel that we sprayed on the rest of the tractor. And even though we have a hot runner here, a hot runner here, but we have a cold intake runner here, cold runner there, I did all the runners in the high temp silver because this kind of collector box is still going to get hot from exhaust. So it would have been hard to do these red without having some burn off here. This is how I did it. It's tough to two-tone these without them looking dumb. That's just what I decided to do, right, wrong, or otherwise. It is what it is at this point. So as long as I had the high temp silver out, I cleaned up and recoated the muffler. I know a couple of you guys caught on to the fact we still had that ugly sticker on the side of it when we had it on there test running it on the last episode. That's because I was going to do that silver anyhow, and it didn't matter if that got burned a little bit from the initial run. So we got the muffler in silver, and I also did the new rain cap and then band clamp where the muffler attaches to that pipe. So I think I'm going to head out here to the Super M, and we're going to start pulling that old manifold off. See if we can't get the new one put on today. I guess one positive about this whole situation is that this manifold is going to be a pretty easy switch over. There's not going to be a whole lot for touch up or having to ding paint, stuff like that. So just about got the last of the nuts holding the carburetor off. There we go. So what I'm going to do here is remove the carburetor and the intake tube at one time because I need to have this out of my way anyhow. So choke rod loose, fuel line loose, this throttle connection loose, and I've got this clamp loose up here at that top air cleaner pipe connection. The two nuts that hold the carburetor to the manifold, and we'll see if we can drop it out of here. And then all that's left is to remove the manifold nuts and washers, and it should be ready to pull right off. Okay, so it only took a few minutes to get the gasket surfaces cleaned back up. New gaskets are in place, and the new manifold's going back on already. So, like I said, this is a pretty painless switch over. Things could be a whole lot worse. We'll just re-secure it with the heavy washers and the manifold nuts. Okay, I've got it torqued down, and that gave me an opportunity to get the same high temp silver on the nuts and the washers. Luckily, Senior had not yet touched those up with the high temp black, so that's all blending in. Next, I can put this extension pipe in there. Right, wrong, or otherwise, I put these threads together dry. The whole point of that is so that it doesn't loosen up again. So Okay, there we are. Click. We have achieved proper torque. Tightening it in with that chain wrench up top, because if I scar some of the paint up there, it doesn't matter. Muffler covers all that anyway. So. And with all that done, we've nearly come full circle. So all that is left to do is reattach the carburetor and the intake pipe. That hose is kind of a tight fit. There, we got it started. Okay, we should be all back together again. That should conclude the wrenching for this video. All the connections are back. We got the air cleaner tube, fuel line, choke rod, and I devoted a few minutes into making sure that the tab on the throttle linkage was fully engaged with the slot on the throttle shaft. That has to be right there. So, all right, you know, I think I like the silver better than the black, truthfully. And now that it's on the tractor, that red drop tube is starting to blend in. Like I said, the sheet metal is going to go about right there. You might see a little bit of the silver sticking out on the bottom of the intake runners, but for the most part, it's going to be all red. And I think I like that better than the old black drop tube anyway. So, and we're pretty much right back to where we were when we started today, other than we have a manifold that's back to being fully intact again. So I think that's going to help it. Make sure I don't trip over anything here. Take a step back. I like the silver on there because I needed more silver on the front to take up for those solid red rims. We had the silver on the back rims, and then once I get the sheet metal on and then that silver muffler sticking out the top, I think that's going to make it look pretty good. It definitely needed some contrast there. So, all right, I think we're at the point now we can put the steering shaft and steering wheel and everything on, and then try to take this thing for a first drive, see if it actually moves right. I know not a lot happened in the video today, and it kind of took me about 5 days to make it with all that other work in between, but that little mishap right there gave me some time to really get fully caught up on the outside chores like I showed you guys earlier. So it's kind of embarrassing that we let a manifold that was in that poor of condition slip through and end up on an otherwise new tractor, but we don't always get it right on the first try. So what was important was we had the resources and the parts available to make it right. So I'm happy about that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Senior and I do appreciate it. We're getting down there on this M, and we're ready to have this spot opened up so we can put another vehicle in this garage. So we're going to work on driving it next. Hope to see you guys back again.